The first thing I noticed when I opened my eyes was the steady beeping of machines. The second was my mother's face, hovering above me with an expression I'd never seen before. Something between relief and guilt. My name is Avery, and I just woke up from a month-long coma. At least, that's what the nurse, Zara, according to her name tag, told me as she checked my vitals. "Welcome back," she said softly, adjusting my IV. "You gave everyone quite a scare. I tried to speak, but my throat felt like sandpaper." Zara brought me ice chips while my mother pressed the call button for the doctor. "Don't try to talk yet, sweetheart," my mother said, smoothing my hair back. "Everything's taken care of. Just focus on getting better." Something in her tone made my skin crawl. I'd known this woman for 29 years, and that voice, that wasn't her normal concerned mother voice. That was her hiding something voice. The doctor arrived, clipboard in hand. "Excellent to see you awake, Avery. Do you remember what happened?" I shook my head slightly, wincing at the movement. "You were in a car accident," he explained. "Drunk driver ran a red light. You've been unconscious for 32 days. 32 days. A month of my life? Gone." I glanced at my mother again, noticed how she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "Where's Lucas?" I managed to croak out. "My brother should have been here." "Oh, he's busy," my mother said quickly. "But he's been so worried about you." The doctor continued his examination, explaining my injuries and recovery timeline. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, traumatic brain injury, the list went on. But something else was nagging at me. "My insurance," I whispered. "Don't worry about any of that," my mother interrupted. "The settlement from the drunk driver's insurance came through. Everything's handled." That's when I saw Zara's face change. Just for a second, but it was enough. She knew something. Later that evening, when my mother stepped out to make some calls, I caught Zara's sleeve as she checked my monitors. "What happened to my money?" I asked, my voice stronger now. Zara hesitated, glancing at the door. "I probably shouldn't say anything, but there were some heated discussions while you were unconscious. Your mother had your medical power of attorney. She and your brother were here arguing about financial decisions." My heart started racing, setting off one of the monitors. How much was the settlement? I heard the number once, close to $500,000. The room started spinning, and not from my injuries. I knew my mother's patterns, knew how she operated. "My phone," I whispered urgently. "I need my phone." Zara retrieved it from the bedside drawer, helped me log into my banking app with shaking fingers. The screen loaded, and my stomach dropped. Balance, $714.13. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." My mother chose that moment to return, all smooth smiles and practiced concern. But I saw through it now, saw the calculation behind her eyes. "Where's my money?" I asked, my voice trembling with rage. She paused in the doorway, and for a moment I saw her mask slip. Then she straightened her shoulders, adopted that maddeningly superior tone she'd perfected over the years. "Lucas needed it more," she said simply. "We thought you might never wake up, and he has so many debts. It was the right thing to do." "The right thing?" My voice cracked. "You stole my settlement while I was in a coma?" "I did what any mother would do," she replied, but her eyes darted away. "I protected my children." "Protected?" I tried to sit up, ignoring the pain shooting through my body. "You protected Lucas by stealing from me?" Zara stepped between us, her hand on my shoulder. "You need to stay calm, Avery. Your body isn't ready for this stress." But I couldn't stay calm. My own mother had robbed me while I lay unconscious, unable to defend myself. She'd taken money meant for my medical bills, my rehabilitation, my future, and given it to my perpetually irresponsible brother. "Get out," I whispered, staring at my mother. "Get out of my room. Avery, don't be dramatic. Get out." The machines were beeping frantically now. Zara called for backup as my mother backed away, still trying to maintain her concerned facade. "We'll talk when you're feeling more reasonable," she said from the doorway. As other nurses rushed in to stabilize me, one thought crystallized through the chaos and pain. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. My mother thought she could get away with this because I was the strong one, the daughter who always recovered, always forgave. She was about to learn that being strong didn't mean being a doormat. 3 weeks after waking up, I sat in my best friend Natalie's living room, surrounded by paperwork and barely able to hold back tears of frustration. My hand shook as I flipped through bank statements, insurance documents, and hospital records. "Look at this," I said, pointing to a transfer date. She didn't even wait a week after my accident before moving the money. Natalie leaned over my shoulder, her face darkening. "That's not just wrong, Avery. That's evil." My phone buzzed. Another message from my mother. I'd been ignoring her texts for days, each one more manipulative than the last. "Just checking on you, sweetheart. Lucas asks about you every day." "I'm sure he does," I muttered, tossing the phone aside. "Probably worried I'll come after his new car." Physical therapy had been brutal that morning, and my body ached, but the pain couldn't match the burning in my chest every time I thought about what they'd done. I'd seen Lucas driving around town in a brand new SUV while I struggled to pay for basic rehabilitation equipment. "I found something," Natalie said suddenly, pulling up a webpage. "There's this lawyer, Gemma Roberts. She specializes in cases like yours, family financial abuse, power of attorney fraud. Look at her success rate." I scrolled through the testimonials, hope flickering for the first time in weeks. Before I could respond, my doorbell rang. "Avery?" My mother's voice called through the door. "I know you're in there. We need to talk about this like adults." Natalie moved to block the door. "Should I tell her to leave?" I shook my head, grabbing my crutches. "No. I want to hear what excuse she has this time." When I opened the door, my mother stood there with her perfect posture and practiced concerned expression. She held up a grocery bag. "I brought soup. You need to keep your strength up." "Like you care about my strength," I said, but let her in. Better to have this out now. She bustled around Natalie's kitchen, acting like nothing was wrong. "You haven't been answering my calls. Lucas is worried sick." "Stop." I slammed my hand on the counter. "Stop pretending this is normal. You stole my money. I made a difficult decision as your mother and medical proxy. You made a decision to rob your comatose daughter." She set down the soup container, her mask slipping slightly. "Lucas needed help. You've always been the strong one, the capable one. You'll bounce back from this." "Bounce back?" I laughed bitterly. "I can barely walk. I need extensive therapy. How am I supposed to pay for that?" "We can figure something out. Maybe a payment plan." "Get out!" My voice was ice cold. "Get out before I call the police." "You wouldn't dare." Her eyes narrowed. "I'm your mother. Watch me." After she left, Natalie helped me make the call to Gemma Roberts' office. To my surprise, she agreed to see me the next day. Gemma's office was small but immaculate. She listened without interrupting as I explained everything, her expression growing darker with each detail. "Show me the power of attorney paperwork," she said finally. I handed over the documents I'd requested from the hospital. Gemma studied them, her frown deepening. "This is interesting," she said, tapping a section with her pen. "The timing of these signatures is concerning, and the witness signatures. We need to dig deeper." "Can you help me?" I asked. She looked up, her eyes fierce. "Oh, I'm going to do more than help you. I'm going to make them regret ever thinking they could get away with this." She pulled out a legal pad. "First, we need a forensic accountant. I know someone, Kenneth. He's retired FBI, specializes in following money trails. Then we'll subpoena all financial records from the past 5 years." 5 years? "But this just happened." "Trust me," Gemma interrupted. "People who do this kind of thing, they usually have a pattern. Your mother didn't wake up one morning and suddenly decide to steal $500,000. This will have happened before. My stomach churned. What do you mean? I mean, she said, her expression grave, this wasn't just unethical. It might have been criminal. And if I'm right, your settlement wasn't her first theft. As I left Gemma's office that afternoon, my phone buzzed with another text from my mother. I hope you're not doing anything foolish, Avery. Family matters should stay in the family. I showed the message to Gemma, who smiled grimly. Keep those texts. Document everything. Your mother's about to learn that karma doesn't care about family ties. For the first time since waking up in that hospital bed, I felt something other than despair. I felt powerful. And I was going to need that power for what came next. Kenneth's office looked like a scene from a detective movie, a paper spread across every surface, multiple computer screens displaying spreadsheets, and sticky notes everywhere. The retired forensic accountant hadn't said a word for 20 minutes as he pored over my financial records. Well, he finally spoke, removing his reading glasses. Your mother's been busy. Gemma leaned forward. What did you find? The settlement money was just the tip of the iceberg. He turned one of the monitors toward us. Look at these transactions from 3 years ago. Regular withdrawals from your savings account, Avery. Small enough to fly under the radar, but they add up to nearly $50,000. My hands clenched into fists. I never authorized those. Of course not, Kenneth said. They were made using your mother's secondary authorization on the account, an authorization you apparently signed for in 2019. I never signed anything in 2019, I said. I was living in Seattle that whole year. Gemma's eyes lit up. Document forgery. Add it to the list. Just then, Natalie burst into the office, waving her phone. Avery, you need to hear this. I've been talking to Zara, your nurse from the hospital. She remembered something important. We all turned to look at her as she caught her breath. The day before your mother transferred the settlement money, Zara overheard her arguing with someone on the phone about transfer paperwork delays. She was saying things like, it needs to be done before she wakes up, and we can't risk her finding out. Kenneth started typing furiously. That timing matches perfectly with these unusual transfers I found. Look here, the money didn't go directly to Lucas. It was routed through 3 different accounts first. Money laundering, Gemma said, scribbling notes. She knew exactly what she was doing. There's more, Kenneth continued, pulling up another screen. I found similar patterns with accounts under both your mother's and Lucas's names. Multiple transfers, shell accounts, even some suspicious insurance claims dating back several years. My head was spinning. What kind of insurance claims? Caregiver benefits, mostly. Your mother claimed to be the primary caregiver for several elderly relatives over the past decade. The thing is, he paused, looking uncomfortable. At least one of them had been deceased for 2 years while she was still collecting payments. Jesus Christ, I whispered. Gemma's phone buzzed. She read the message and her eyebrows shot up. The hospital just sent over their complete records. Avery, did you know your mother tried to access your accounts 3 times before you were even admitted to the ICU? While I was still unconscious in the emergency room? My voice cracked. Exactly. She wasn't waiting by your bedside. She was trying to get to your money before anyone else could intervene. Natalie put her arm around my shoulders as I struggled to process this information. My own mother had seen my accident as an opportunity, not a tragedy. Your settlement wasn't the only thing she's taken, Kenneth said ominously. There's a trail, Avery, a long one, and it leads to places I don't think you're ready to see yet. Show me everything, I demanded. I need to know what I'm dealing with. For the next 2 hours, Kenneth walked us through his findings. Credit cards opened in my name without my knowledge. Loans taken out against my childhood trust fund. Even my college fund had been drained years ago. Money my grandparents had set aside for me. Wait, Natalie interrupted, pointing at a name on one of the documents. Isn't that your cousin Pearl? The one who had that mysterious falling out with your mom years ago? My blood ran cold. Pearl had cut off all contact with our family after a long illness 5 years ago. No one ever explained why. Kenneth, I said slowly, can you look into any financial connections between my mother and Pearl? He was already typing. Give me a few days. If there's something there, I'll find it. Gemma stood up, gathering her notes. This is more than enough to start with. We can file initial charges for the settlement theft and document forgery. Once Kenneth finishes his full audit, we'll add the rest. What about Lucas? I asked. He had to know where that money came from. Oh, we're not done with your brother, Gemma assured me. His fingerprints are all over this too. He's just as guilty as your mother. As we left Kenneth's office, my phone lit up with a text from Lucas. Mom says you're causing trouble. Don't be stupid, sis. Just let it go. I showed it to Gemma, who smiled coldly. They still think they can intimidate you into silence. Let them keep thinking that. It'll make it so much sweeter when everything comes crashing down. I nodded, feeling a strange calm settle over me. My mother and brother had no idea what was coming. They thought they were dealing with the old Avery, the one who forgave, who kept the peace, who stayed quiet. That Avery died in the coma. This one was out for justice. I found Lucas at his favorite bar, nursing a whiskey that probably cost more than my weekly physical therapy copay. My brother looked up as I approached, his familiar lazy smile spreading across his face. Hey, sis! Finally decided to stop ignoring the family? Nice car, I said, sitting down across from him. The settlement money must have really helped with those debts Mom mentioned. He shrugged, taking another sip. Look, I know you're pissed, but Mom made the call. Not my fault you were unconscious. So you knew exactly where the money came from? Course I did. He laughed and something ugly flashed across his face. It's not like you were using it anyway. Doctor said you might be brain dead. My hands trembled under the table. They never said that. I've seen the medical records. Whatever. He waved dismissively. Point is, I needed it more. You've always been Little Miss Perfect with your fancy job and savings account. Must be nice, never having to struggle. Thiero, struggle. I leaned forward. I'm struggling to walk, Lucas. I can barely work. Do you have any idea how much rehabilitation costs? He rolled his eyes. There's always GoFundMe or whatever. You're good at figuring things out. Like you figured out how to get government assistance under 2 different names? His glass froze halfway to his mouth. What? Kenneth's very thorough. Found some interesting paperwork with your photo, but different names. Different social security numbers, too. You don't know what you're talking about, he snapped, but his eyes darted toward his jacket pocket. Really? So if I called the welfare office right now and asked about Marcus Reynolds, they wouldn't know anything about him? Lucas stood up so fast his chair scraped across the floor. You need to shut your mouth. Or what? You'll steal from me again? I smiled coldly. Too late for that. But the federal government might be interested in knowing how you've been double-dipping benefits. You wouldn't dare. He sounded just like our mother. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family. I stood up carefully, steadying myself on my cane. But don't worry, big brother. The authorities will figure out exactly how much family means to you. He grabbed my arm. Listen here. You little... Everything okay here? The bartender interrupted, his large frame casting a shadow over us. Just fine, I said, pulling free. My brother was just leaving. Lucas snatched his jacket, nearly knocking over his glass. As he stormed past me, something fell from his pocket. A wallet. Not his usual one. I picked it up before he could return, quickly snapping a photo of the fake ID inside. Marcus Reynolds smiled back at me, wearing my brother's face. That's mine, Lucas snarled, reappearing beside me. Oops, I said, letting him snatch it back. Butterfingers. Must be the nerve damage from my accident. His face twisted with rage, but he couldn't make a scene without drawing more attention. Instead, he leaned in close and whispered, You have no idea what you're getting into. Back off now, Or else. Or else what? I matched his whisper. You'll tell Mom? Go ahead. Tell her everything. I'm sure she'd love to explain to her church friends why her son has multiple identities. He stormed out, leaving me shaking but triumphant. I immediately sent the photo to Gemma with a text. Got proof. Lucas has been running a benefits scam. Her response came quickly. Excellent. This helps establish a pattern of fraud. How did he react? Threatened me, just like Mom. Perfect. Save any threatening messages. We're building a beautiful case here. Outside the bar, I spotted Lucas's new SUV pulling away. The car I'd been in had been totaled in my accident, but here was my brother, driving around in luxury bought with my pain and suffering. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Lucas just called me, very upset. Why are you doing this to our family? After everything I've done for you? I thought about responding, but instead, I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Gemma. Let them keep digging their hole deeper. Every message, every threat, every attempt at manipulation just added to the evidence pile. As I waited for my Uber, I noticed something else had fallen from Lucas's jacket. A crumpled receipt. I smoothed it out, and my breath caught. It was for a wire transfer, dated just 2 days after my settlement money disappeared. The amount matched exactly half of what had been stolen from me. I took a photo of that too, my hand steady now. Mom hadn't just given Lucas my money, they'd split it. They'd planned this together, waiting until I was helpless to stop them. Got one more thing for you, I texted Gemma, sending the receipt photo. Her response was immediate. Now we've got them both. Ready to make them pay? I looked at the receipt again, remembering Lucas's smug face, my mother's false concern, the way they'd both assumed I'd just roll over and take it. Ready, I typed back. Let's burn it all down. You might want to sit down for this, Kenneth said, spreading documents across Gemma's conference table. What we've uncovered, it's worse than we thought. I gripped Natalie's hand as Kenneth pulled up his presentation. The wall screen filled with financial records, bank statements, and what looked like insurance claims. Your mother's been running a sophisticated scheme for years, he began. Remember how we found those caregiver benefits she claimed for deceased relatives? That was just the beginning. Gemma leaned forward. Show her the trust fund documents. Kenneth nodded, clicking to the next slide. This is where it gets interesting. Your grandmother set up trust funds for all her grandchildren. You, Lucas, and your cousins. Each account should have had roughly $100,000 by now. She should have had, I asked. They're all empty, every single one, except for Lucas's, which is somehow double what it should be. Natalie squeezed my hand as Kenneth continued. But here's where it gets truly disturbing. Remember your cousin Pearl? My stomach churned. The one who cut contact with the family? I found her, Kenneth said quietly. She's living in Oregon. And when I reached out, she had quite a story to tell. He played an audio recording. Pearl's voice, once familiar, now haunted, filled the room. Aunt Raquel offered to help manage my medical care when I got sick. She had experience, she said, but then money started disappearing. My disability payments, my savings. When I confronted her, she threatened to cut off my medication. Said no one would believe me over her. I felt sick. How much did she take from Pearl? Nearly $200,000, Kenneth replied. But that's not all. We found similar patterns with your Uncle Robert before he died. Your mother claimed to be his primary caregiver, collected insurance payments, managed his accounts. He died broke, I whispered, remembering the family gossip. Everyone thought he'd gambled everything away. He didn't, Gemma said firmly. Your mother drained him dry, just like she tried to do to you. Kenneth clicked through more slides. We've documented at least 7 separate instances of financial exploitation. Your mother targeted family members when they were most vulnerable, during illness, after accidents, while grieving. She used her reputation as the family matriarch to gain control, then systematically stripped them of everything. And Lucas, I asked, was her partner in all of it. He received regular payments from these stolen funds. That's how he's maintained his lifestyle despite never holding a real job. Natalie spoke up, but why didn't anyone report her? Same reason Pearl stayed quiet, Gemma explained. Shame, fear, family loyalty. Your mother exploited those emotions masterfully. She knew exactly how to manipulate people into silence. Kenneth pulled up one final document. This is from your father's life insurance policy. My heart stopped. Dad died when I was 12. Yes, Kenneth said gently. The policy was worth $500,000, split equally between you and Lucas. Except, let me guess, I said bitterly. The money disappeared. Your mother claimed you both agreed to invest it in family businesses, but we can't find any record of these businesses ever existing. Tears burned in my eyes. She stole from her own children? Even back then? She's been stealing from her own children for over a decade, Gemma said, slamming the final audit folder down. Are you ready to burn her? I wiped my eyes, straightening in my chair. What's our next move? We file everything, Gemma said. Civil suits, criminal complaints, reports to every relevant agency. We contact every victim, build a united front. Your mother's house of cards is about to collapse. My phone buzzed. Another text from my mother. Coming by later to discuss this nonsense. Time to act like an adult. I showed it to Gemma, who smiled grimly. Perfect timing. Let her come. We'll have papers ready to serve her. She won't go down easily, I warned. They never do, Kenneth agreed, but the evidence is overwhelming. Every transaction, every forged document, every stolen dollar, it's all here. She can't talk her way out of this one. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a call from Lucas. I put it on speaker. You need to stop this investigation right now, he hissed. Mom's having anxiety attacks. Is that what you want? To kill your own mother? Interesting choice of words, Gemma interrupted loudly, considering what we've just uncovered about your father's insurance money. Silence on the other end. That's what I thought, Gemma continued. Tell your mother to expect company later. And Lucas, I'd start looking for a good criminal defense lawyer if I were you. After he hung up, I stared at the mountain of evidence before me, the documented history of my mother's betrayals. Years of manipulation, theft, and exploitation, all hidden behind a mask of maternal concern. Ready? Gemma asked, gathering the papers. I nodded, gripping my cane. Ready. Let's show my mother what real family loyalty looks like. The local news van was already parked outside my mother's house when we arrived. Gemma had tipped them off. Financial exploitation of vulnerable family members makes for compelling headlines, she'd explained. My mother opened the door before we could knock, her face tight with anger. What is the meaning of this? Why are there reporters outside my house? Maybe they're interested in your creative financial management, Gemma said, stepping forward. Mrs. Jordan, I'm serving you with multiple civil suits and a notice of criminal investigation. She thrust the papers into my mother's hands. Behind her, I could see Lucas pacing in the living room, phone pressed to his ear. This is ridiculous, my mother sputtered. Avery, what have you done? What have I done? I stepped closer, steady on my cane. I think the question is, what have you done? To me? To Pearl? To Uncle Robert? Her face went white. You've been talking to Pearl? She's very interested in testifying, Gemma interjected, as are several other victims we've identified. Lucas appeared behind our mother. Don't say another word, Mom. I've got a lawyer on the way. Smart move, Gemma smiled. You'll need one. The FBI is particularly interested in your creative use of Social Security numbers. Camera flashes went off behind us. The reporters had spotted the confrontation. Get inside, my mother hissed. All of you, now. We followed her into the house I'd grown up in. Family photos lined the walls, perfect smiles hiding perfect lies. My mother's hand shook as she read through the papers. This is all a misunderstanding, she said finally. I was protecting this family, managing our resources. Is that what you call stealing Dad's life insurance money? I asked quietly. Lucas's head snapped up. What? Oh, didn't she tell you? I turned to my brother. That investment she claimed to make with our inheritance never existed. She took everything. Mom? Lucas's voice held a note I'd never heard before. Uncertainty. Don't be dramatic, she snapped. Everything I did was for this family, for you. No, I said firmly. Everything you did was for yourself. You're not a protective mother. You're a predator. Her mask cracked. How dare you? After everything I've sacrificed. Sacrificed? I laughed bitterly. You sacrificed other people's money, other people's futures. You sacrificed my chance to recover from a near-fatal accident. A commotion outside drew our attention. More news vans had arrived. My phone buzzed with notifications. The story was breaking online. Local mother accused of systematic family financial abuse. Brother and mother charged in multi-year fraud scheme. Coma patient settlement, stolen by family members. My mother's phone started ringing. She glanced at it, face paling further. It's the church board. Better answer it, Gemma suggested. They might want to discuss your position as treasurer. Just then, my phone pinged with an email. The subject line made my heart stop. Your mother killed my sister. Gemma, I whispered, showing her the screen. She read quickly, her eyes widening. You're not the first person Raquel controlled with medical documents. Want to know what happened to Pearl's sister? What is that? My mother demanded, trying to see the screen. The truth, I said. It's all coming out now. Every lie, every theft, every person you've destroyed. Lucas slumped onto the couch, head in his hands. I didn't know about Dad's money. I swear, Avery, I didn't know. But you knew about my settlement, I reminded him. You knew exactly what you were taking. The doorbell rang. Police officers with search warrants. As they entered, my mother finally broke. I did everything for you, ungrateful children, she screamed. Everything! And this is how you repay me? No, Mom, I said, watching the officers begin their search. This is how karma repays you. Reporters shouted questions through the windows. Church members were calling. Social media was exploding with the story. My mother's carefully constructed world was crumbling in real time. We should go, Gemma said softly. Let the police do their work. As we turned to leave, my mother grabbed my arm. Avery, please. I'm your mother. I looked at her hand, then into her eyes. No, you're just someone who gave birth to me. A real mother doesn't steal from her children. Outside, the cameras flashed again. Gemma guided me through the crowd, fielding questions with practiced ease. Behind us, I could hear my mother's wails as the officers discovered more evidence. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Pearl. Thank you for being brave enough to expose her. We're all ready to tell our stories now. I looked back at the house where I'd grown up, where I'd learned to fear the power of a mother's love. The truth was finally breaking free, and with it, so was I. The courthouse buzzed with tension as my mother took the stand. She dressed perfectly for the role of concerned matriarch. Modest blue suit, pearl necklace, hands clasped demurely in her lap. But her eyes told a different story as they darted between the judge, the prosecutors, and me. Pearl sat beside me, her hand finding mine as the questioning began. She'd flown in from Oregon to testify, along with 3 other victims of my mother's schemes. Even Lucas was here, though not by choice. He sat with his lawyer on the other side of the courtroom, awaiting his own fraud trial. Mrs. Jordan, the prosecutor began, please explain why you transferred your daughter's insurance settlement while she was comatose. I was protecting her interests, my mother replied smoothly, as her medical proxy. Your Honor, the prosecutor interrupted, I'd like to present Exhibit 47. The courtroom screen lit up with hospital security footage. There was my mother, barely an hour after my accident, arguing with hospital staff about accessing my accounts. The timestamp showed 2:14 a.m., while I was still in emergency surgery. Would you call this protecting interests, Mrs. Jordan? My mother's composure cracked slightly. I was ensuring bills would be paid. Like this bill? Another document appeared on screen. The receipt for Lucas's new SUV, purchased 3 days after my settlement was drained. That was a necessary. And these bills? More documents flashed by. Luxury purchases, casino withdrawals, spa treatments, all necessary expenses for your comatose daughter? My mother's hands began to shake. You're twisting things. Am I? The prosecutor held up a thick folder. Because I have statements from 7 different family members describing nearly identical patterns of financial exploitation. Would you like me to call them all to testify? They're lying, my mother snapped, her mask slipping further. They're jealous of my success, my standing in the community. Your Honor, the prosecutor said, I'd like to play Exhibit 62. The color drained from my mother's face. No. A video appeared on screen. Security footage from Lucas's apartment. There was my mother, counting out cash with Lucas. Just keep quiet about where it came from. Her voice rang clear through the speakers. Avery's not going to wake up anyway. We might as well put the money to good use. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. My mother gripped the witness stand, her knuckles white. That's taken out of context, she insisted. Then perhaps you'd like to explain this context. The prosecutor played another clip, this time a phone conversation Lucas had accidentally recorded on his own device. Of course I took the insurance money, my mother's voice declared. Those stupid kids didn't need it. Robert was dead. What did he care? And Pearl's sister, well, she should have read the paperwork more carefully before signing over power of attorney. Pearl's grip on my hand tightened. In the defendant's section, Lucas had his head in his hands. Your Honor, my mother's lawyer started to object, but she cut him off. They were all weak, she suddenly shouted, standing up. All of them, waiting for handouts, expecting me to take care of everything. I did what I had to do. Avery was always the strong one. She could handle losing the money. She didn't need it like Lucas did. The judge's gavel cracked like a gunshot. Mrs. Jordan, sit down. But my mother was beyond control now. Years of careful manipulation exploding into raw fury. I built this family. I managed everything. They should be thanking me. She swayed suddenly, clutching her chest. The courtroom erupted in chaos as she collapsed. Medical emergency, someone shouted. We need a doctor. As paramedics rushed in, I watched my mother being lifted onto a stretcher. Even in crisis, she played her part. The suffering mother, the victim of ungrateful children, but this time, no one was buying it. The judge called a recess, but the damage was done. My mother's outburst, caught on court recordings and witnessed by a room full of people, had sealed her fate. Outside the courtroom, Gemma squeezed my shoulder. Your mother's little performance won't change anything. Between the evidence and her confession, she's facing serious time. Pearl nodded. So is Lucas. They can't hurt anyone else now. I watched through the window as my mother was loaded into an ambulance, already planning her next manipulation. But it wouldn't work. Not anymore. The truth had finally broken through decades of lies. You okay? Natalie asked softly. I straightened my shoulders, feeling stronger than I had in months. I'm perfect. As cameras flashed and reporters called out questions, I walked past my mother's stretcher without a word. No dramatic confrontation, no final accusations, just silence. Sometimes that's the loudest statement of all. Behind me, I heard her call out weakly, Avery, please. But I kept walking. The strong one had finally learned when to walk away. The verdict arrived on a crisp autumn morning. I sat in the courtroom, surrounded by the family members my mother had betrayed, as the judge delivered the sentence. Raquel Jordan, this court finds you guilty on all counts of financial exploitation, fraud, and abuse of power of attorney. You are sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. My mother didn't cry. She stood rigid, still clinging to her dignity as the bailiff led her away. Her eyes found mine one last time, but I saw no remorse there, only cold calculation. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Pearl stepped forward first, her voice steady. Today, justice was served not just for me, but for every victim of financial abuse. Family ties don't excuse criminal behavior. Gemma handled the legal questions, while Kenneth explained the financial recovery process. I stayed quiet, watching the autumn leaves scatter across the courthouse steps. Ready to go home? Natalie asked. One more stop first. We drove to my mother's house, now seized by the state as part of the restitution order. The front door stood open as investigators continued cataloging evidence. They'd found documents hidden in the walls, USB drives taped under drawers, a whole history of exploitation carefully archived by my mother's own compulsive record-keeping. Ms. Jordan, an investigator approached with a small box. We found these in your old bedroom. Inside were photos from my childhood, birthday parties, school events, family vacations, moments that had seemed perfect until I understood the corruption beneath them. Look at this one, Natalie said softly, pulling out a photo of me and my mother at my college graduation. She's already stealing from you here, isn't she? According to Kenneth's timeline? Yes. I studied my younger self's trusting smile. She probably emptied my account that same week. My phone buzzed. A message from Lucas's lawyer. My brother had taken a plea deal, agreeing to testify about other frauds in exchange for a lighter sentence. He'd serve 5 years. Ms. Jordan, another investigator called from upstairs. There's something you should see. In my mother's bedroom closet, they'd found a safe. Inside were letters, dozens of them, from people begging her to return what she'd stolen. Medical bills, foreclosure notices, desperate pleas for help. She'd kept them all, like trophies. She really thought she'd never face consequences, Gemma said, examining the letters. Classic narcissist behavior. What happens to everything now? I asked. The state will liquidate her assets. Between that and the recovered accounts, we estimate victims will receive about 60% of what was stolen. It wasn't everything, but it was something. More importantly, it was an acknowledgement of the truth. Back downstairs, I found one last photo that made me pause. My father holding newborn me, while my mother watched from her hospital bed. Even then, her eyes held that calculating look. You don't have to keep any of it, Natalie reminded me. I know. I pulled out my lighter, the one I'd carried since discovering the truth about my settlement. But I want to keep this one, a reminder. I touched the flame to one corner of the photo, watching as it caught. The fire ate away at my mother's image first, leaving my father and baby me untouched before I dropped it in the metal trash can. Symbolic, Gemma observed with a smile. Outside, Pearl was talking to reporters again, her voice carrying clearly. She called us weak because we trusted her, but exposing her took more strength than she ever had. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from the prison. My mother wanted to see me. Classic last attempt at control. Delete, I said firmly, pressing the button. That evening, sitting in Natalie's garden with Pearl and the other survivors, we shared stories not of victimhood, but of recovery, of learning to trust again, of rebuilding what was stolen, of finding strength in unexpected places. To karma, Pearl raised her glass, may it always find its mark. To justice, Gemma added. To freedom, I said quietly. Later, I found the last unburned piece of that photo in my pocket, just my father's smiling face. I tucked it into an envelope with no return address and sent it to my mother's prison cell. Let her wonder what message I was sending. Let her spend her years behind bars thinking about everything she lost. She called me strong like it was a sacrifice. She didn't realize strength is what finally ended her. I walked back to join my new family, not bound by blood, but by something stronger, truth. Behind us, the sun set on my mother's empire of lies, and I didn't look back again. Some people say revenge doesn't bring peace, but sometimes justice is all the peace you need.